The 1991 kart season is only 2 races old, but already it has seen the bizarre. The opener in Australia saw defending PPG champion Al Unser Jr. lead 39 laps, only to end his day along with frontrunners Eddie Cheever and Mario Andretti in the chicane on the back straight. John Andretti went on to finish at the top of the field for his first IndyCar victory. Little Al restored some normalcy at Long Beach, running in his accustomed leader position. A terrifying pit incident between Fittipaldi and Michael Andretti ended both their days and set the scene for Phoenix. Because as Al Unser Jr. took the checkered flag, Emmo and Mike found themselves with 2 straight DNFs and way behind in the PPG Points Championship. Michael, last year's bridesmaid in the championship fight, has won both poles this season, but he has earned only 2 points and needs to finish well here to get back in the hunt. Emmo has yet to pick up a single point in 1991. The '89 PPG Cup winner knows that Phoenix, though only the 3rd race of the year, is already pivotal in the points this season. Both men are faced with a difficult challenge, both by their competitors and by the tri-oval that is Phoenix International Raceway. A mile bullring that is as unpredictable as it is unconquerable. Mistakes turn into disaster quickly on the unforgiving bank turns. Yet it is here that Fittipaldi and Andretti, champions in their own right, must battle to rejoin the championship race in the Valvoline 200. Phoenix International Raceway is one of the favorite stops on the PPG IndyCar World Series circuit for crews, race drivers, and certainly the race fans. With a beautiful backdrop of the Estrella Mountains, it's also one of the most scenic courses. Well, here today, we're ready to contest the 3rd round of the series. Hello and welcome, I'm Paul Page. This is a pivotal race, not just because of where it sits in the points fight, but because many of the settings on the race cars that are made here are directly translatable to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy 500. So for many teams, it's not just a race, it's also a test for Indy itself. At this race, A.J. Foyt, Bobby and Al Unser have all won and then gone on to win the Indy 500. And when you're talking Indy 500 champions, well, then, Sam Posey, the name Rick Mears can't be very far from your lips.
Today begins Rick's 14th year of employment by car owner Roger Penske, an association which has lasted longer by far than any of its kind in the big leagues of racing. It may get off to a good start today, too, because in the last few years, Phoenix has been very good to the team. Rick has won this race 3 times, including twice in the last 2 years. And he renewed his love affair with Phoenix yesterday by setting his 4th consecutive pole position here en route to a new lap record. You know, last week at Long Beach, Al Unser Jr. started the race as the favorite. And today, Rick Mears starts Phoenix as the heavy favorite.
So as he sits ready to go, Rick Mears is now with our Jackaroo.
And Paul, although the fact that Rick Mears won the Marlboro Invitational last fall, it's been 12 months since he captured a victory in a kart points-paying event, and that last victory was here at Phoenix. And you are the heavy favorite here, Rick, but one has to think that that sits in the back of your head, the long winless streak, too.
Well, it does. You know, obviously we'd like to win all the races we can, and you know, I think for the Marlboro team this year, the car is very strong. We're just looking forward to a good race today. We'd like to get this one under our belt if we can. We had a couple of pretty good finishes the first 2 races, and we'd like to try to stack up some points here through into the mid-season.
The early book on Rick Mears has always been that if it's necessary to finish to give up a chance on winning, you would do that. Is that the way you look at it? If you finishing first, winning second?
Well, you have to finish before you can win, and there's always a chance of winning as long as you're on the racetrack and running. And so I've always felt it's better to finish. And you know, especially if you're going to work toward a points championship or whatever, you have to get to the end of the race.
On Team Penske, points championships are very important, and this race today at Phoenix is important as well.
Rick Mears starts on the pole. Now, Bobby Unser, we saw these cars just a week ago, but they're different cars here at Phoenix.
Well, they look the same, but they're vastly different. For example, at Long Beach last weekend, they used the limited slip rear end in the cars. That's something very similar to what the people have in their passenger cars at home. But here at Phoenix, they use a locked rear end, which means that the left rear tire turns the same as the right rear tire. Now, also the gears and the transmissions are different here. Two top gears in the transmissions are basically for racing. One for flat-out racing, and the other one for cruising, get fuel mileage better. And the other thing is the wings. They look like they're the same. They are the same. Now, you would expect at Long Beach versus Phoenix, they would be totally different, but all the same.
Now, one team that's very pleased with the progress they've made here is Alfa Romeo, and their driver, Danny Sullivan. Right now, he is with Gary Gerald.
Danny Sullivan starts outside row 3 of this race, Paul. It's the best start for Alfa since they returned to IndyCar racing in '89. And Danny, the question is, a week ago at Long Beach, you started 16th. That's an improvement of 10 positions. What's happened in a week's time?
Well, a big improvement, but we found something wrong with the car that was screwing up the mixture for our fuel, so we were actually reducing our power as we thought we were increasing it. So we changed that around. We're a lot more competitive this week.
Higher hopes for this team as they continue their developmental program as we go back up to Paul Page.
The 22 Indy cars sit on the straightaway here at Phoenix, ready for the command to start engines. We'll be back. Watch a great race here, drivers being strapped into the cockpit. It takes 100% concentration all the time to get around here. In today's tip from the cockpit, Scott Brayton shows us how to do it.
Coming down the front straightaway here on the Phoenix Oval, you first get over next to the wall as you're entering the corner. You begin to turn into the corner, and as you turn into the corner, you roll out of the throttle and you will begin to apply the brake. Then as you feel the front end start to get a good grip on the corner, you begin to apply the throttle down again. That's really what we call the center of the corner, or the apex. That's about where you'll see those cones down there. From that point out, you'll be 100% throttle, and you'll run through turn 2 flat and out into the dogleg. Now, where this course differs from, say, a Milwaukee, is that at Milwaukee we'll come into the corner, we'll apply brakes very hard, we'll turn and we'll get the power down, and there isn't as much banking at a track like Milwaukee, and so this corner here has a higher consistent speed than, say, at the mile at Milwaukee. Okay, this is the part of the course that the drivers call the dogleg. It is immediately following turn 2, and this is about 165 to 170 mile an hour corner. We'll go flat through here in approaching turn 3, where we run almost 180 miles an hour. Now, in this area is a very good place to pass slower traffic or for you to challenge your competition. So it is a place where you'll see some 2 abreast driving, and going into 3, we'll challenge to increase our position on the course. Okay, this is the entry of turn 3. We approach this at 180 miles an hour, and we run it flat when you're really hooked up. How this corner would differ from, say, a place like Milwaukee. At Milwaukee, going into turn 3, you have to use the brakes extremely hard, get your car turned, and then accelerate out of it. Whereas here on the mile oval at Phoenix, you really kind of run 3 and 4 flat. Under the Goodyear Bridge is the entry to turn 4. This is 100% throttle through the exit of turn 4. Here on the PIR oval, at the exit of 4, you try to size up your competition and pass them going down into the front straightaway.
That's how Scott Brayton gets around. We're moving closer and closer to the start of the engines. Let's look at the starting field. On the pole, it's Rick Mears. His last IndyCar win was here 1 year ago. Alongside is Michael Andretti, the winner on the Phoenix Mile in 1986. The second row, Mario Andretti, starting his 39th race here at Phoenix. And Bobby Rahal, the current point leader on the strength of a pair of runner-up finishes. Inside the third row is Emerson Fittipaldi, has never run better than third here. And Danny Sullivan, the best qualifying run ever for the Alfa Romeo car. In the fourth row, it's John Andretti, who won the season opener in Australia, and Al Unser Jr., last week's winner at Long Beach. The fifth row, on the inside is Arie Luyendyk. He's based in nearby Scottsdale, and Scott Brayton, who led this race for 11 laps 3 years ago. The 6th row is Eddie Cheever. He finished 7th a year ago. And Scott Pruitt, the Daytona IROC winner after a serious injury last year. In the 7th row is Mike Groff, who finished 7th at Nazareth last fall in his only start on a 1-mile oval. And Jeff Andretti, Mario's youngest son, has top 10 efforts in both races this year. The 8th row is Scott Goodyear. He scored a top 10 finish in every start on a 1-mile oval. And Tony Bentonhausen, who ran an impressive 6th in his start here back in 1988. The 9th row, Hiro Mashusta, making only his 2nd start on an oval. And Al Unser, driving A.J. Foyt's car, is the all-time Phoenix winner with 6 victories. In the 10th row, Guido Dacco, his best career finish, is a 12th here at Phoenix last year. And Randy Lewis, a veteran driver out of California. In the 11th row, Mark Dismore, making his first IndyCar start on an oval. And Jeff Wood, a last-minute replacement for Paul Tracy. Interesting fact, the last 5 times Mears started on the pole, he did not lead the opening lap. We'll be back for the start of the engines right after this. Desert, but it is soon to be challenged by the roar of literally thousands of horsepower generated by the Indy cars.
On behalf of Team Valvoline, our customers, our employees, and our associates everywhere, it's my privilege to say, gentlemen, start your engines!
Somewhat slowly, the roar builds on the straightaway here at Phoenix. 22 Indy cars. John Andretti set, looking down the rows, making sure that everyone is started. On a warm, but otherwise perfect day. All 22 machines are poised, ready to go. Checking all of the rows now, each team, hands in the air indicating that they are set to acknowledge the role of the pace cars, the PPG safety cars out in front of this field, lights flashing. You look over Al Unser Jr.'s shoulder. There's Rick Mears. He sits on the pole. Another victory today. Michael Andretti contemplates. Remembering last week, he had victory hoped in hand. There's Mario. Will he score a victory here? His 39th start. Gives Mario the most experience. So calmly, Rick Mears sits there. As up and down the line now, everyone is set. The crews begin to clear back just a little bit, only necessary personnel. And as Michael begins to roll, following the pace car alongside Rick, we're ready. Emerson Fittipaldi, his team this morning, the last-minute session for an engine that let go yesterday. Wondering now, is everything in order for this run? Beautiful day. Light winds, comfortable temperatures. It should remain that way throughout the afternoon, and sunny here in the Valley of the Sun. On the line after 200 miles, $800,000. The race record is held by Roberto Guerrero. He does not race here today, but he's been around making his presence known and looking for a ride. Here are the cars, the chassis, the engines that race here today, dominated by Chevrolet and Lola, but still plenty of contest. And the point standings, well, Bobby Rahal is unaccustomed to that top position so early in the season. Are we looking at a possible 3rd PPG Cup championship for Rahal, or yet another one for Rick Mears? A long season lies ahead. The focus today is on this race, and then immediately these cars pack up and head for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and to prepare for the 75th running of the Indianapolis 500. Rick Mears on the pole, Michael Andretti on the outside.
Consider how important this race is to Bobby Rahal, who is starting on the outside of the front row. He has been outshone all last year by his teammate Al Unser Jr., but today he is outqualified Al by a wide margin, over 2 miles an hour. And with his 2 second places so far in the year, he leads the championship. A success today would give him considerable momentum toward Indy, a race which he has won, and little Al has not won. Big day for Bobby Rahal.
Scott Goodyear with his problems. You saw just a glimpse of him as he's rolling to a stop on the backside of the course. There he is, and that may have an adverse effect on the start of this race. Doesn't look like he's under power, Bobby.
No, he's certainly going awfully slow. He's probably just coasting right now, Paul, but while we're waiting to see what's going to happen with Scott, I just want to mention Danny Sullivan, a guy that really has something to prove, as Sam was saying about his man. As Danny left the Penske team last year, the top team, one of the best teams ever in motor racing, and now he's with Alfa Romeo, who is more in a development program than anything else. Now Danny's out to prove a point. His engine, incidentally, is fast. His straightaway speeds are fast. It's up comparable to the Chevrolets, and he's definitely handling good. So I'm looking forward to Danny, really, right there he is. Looking forward to him putting on a hard race today.
Well, whatever it may have been for Scott Goodyear, it solved itself. Suddenly in the third turn, he was able to get her rolling and get the engine to fire properly, and he is now moving to rejoin his position. The number 2 car is Michael Andretti. There's Bobby Rahal, the points leader, just behind him. Emerson Fittipaldi in that number 5 machine. The red tip on the rollover bar will tell you that it's Mario in number 6 as they line up on the backstretch now, and the PPG pace car begins to accelerate and pull away. The field goes over to the control of Rick Mears. We look backwards from one of our onboard cameras. We have 4 different cars carrying them for you here today. Now here is Rick Mears picking the pace up. You watch from Michael Andretti's front row seat as they come off the final turn and look forward to Nick Finoro's green flag. And there they go. Now remember, Rick Mears does not normally lead the first lap, and it just may be happening again as Michael Andretti goes to the lead and Rick Mears begins a fight with Bobby Rahal. Michael Andretti on the backside begins to pull out just a bit. Mears settles in, content to run fast at the finish and not so much at the start.
Paul, I don't think he really wanted to lead it. It was obvious when he came down from the start. Rick is a hard starter and a fast one if he wants to. He didn't want to do it. He'd rather see somebody else in the lead, which is Michael right now, and to see how the track's going to be.
They flash across the line. The first mile complete. Michael Andretti leads, then Rick, then Bobby Rahal, then Mario. Danny Sullivan has moved up to challenge Mario.
Let's keep in mind now, we've had other races on this racetrack, so the track is not the same way it was when the guys practiced yesterday and qualified.
Michael thought that he might have been able to get the pole yesterday, but for the fact that his car bottomed briefly as he headed into turn 1, where there's a little bump. We'll be looking for that to show that to you.
Michael Andretti, one of the Newman Haas Lolas, powered by Chevrolet. Of course, they've had to do a lot of repair work on their cars this year. Michael involved in conflict both in Australia and at Long Beach.
Here's that little bump coming up right there as he heads into turn 1.
Rick Mears lines up behind Michael. Bobby Rahal stays in 3rd place. Mario remains in 4th. Danny Sullivan looking solid in 5th. Then Fittipaldi, then Al Unser Jr., who started in 8th and has picked up 1 position.
Back in 1978, when Rick had his first race for Roger Penske here, he finished 5th. The point is, he finishes all the time. Has a higher ratio of finishes to starts than anybody else in the business.
There you see Mario Andretti with Danny Sullivan just behind.
You know, I have to be a little bit surprised right now, Paul. There hasn't been much racing or much passing this early in the race. Usually there's a big scramble for some position. Right now, most of them seem to be content with following the other, seeing what the events are going to be like, what the track is going to be like.
As you see, Danny Sullivan, he mentioned in the interview just before the race that this is the highest qualifying position, best start for an Alfa engine car. You see that on the right, that's Sullivan there, as he's making a bid to pass Mario Andretti, but not there. He qualified a remarkable 6th, which is better by 3 positions than an Alfa engine had ever qualified before.
Well, Danny Sullivan seems more than pleased with the power that engine generates. And when we get opportunities to look at him, well, there he is right there, we get a good comparison of its power to the Chevrolet of Andretti. Back at the front of the field, it's another Andretti. This time, Michael and Rick Mears closed up and stuck his nose right under Michael's rear wing. As you can see already, they're going to run in traffic, so the leaders now have to begin to pace.
Now that's Rick telling Michael, hey, you know, you're going good, you're leading the race, but I'm here, and I can still run up on you when I need to. Now, Rick is showing his capabilities right there now.
Rick tries to move to the inside. Michael shuts him off as they pace themselves past Randy Lewis and Jeff Wood at the back of the field, and that stretches Rick back just a little bit as they come onto the front stretch.
Talking to Rick yesterday, he said it is very hard to pass an equal or nearly equal car in a straight fight. You really have to do it in traffic, so that's obviously on his mind, as Danny Sullivan, too, moves by Randy Lewis.
So 8 laps, 8 miles are now complete, 200 miles the scheduled distance, and we've already noted that they are seemingly taking it just a little bit easy in these opening laps. I think, Bobby Enzer, that's probably because there is a concern about fuel economy.
Yes, if they, for example, if they run the lap at 22.5-second laps, they're going to get 1.8 miles per gallon. If they run it at 22.3 seconds a lap, they're only going to get 1.5 miles per gallon.
Danny Sullivan with Fittipaldi lined up behind him, and in front of him is Michael Andretti. Or is Mario Andretti. Michael Andretti is at the front of this field. Rick Mears chases. Bobby Rahal runs in third place. We'll be back with more after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Sandy Andretti watches her husband Michael lead in this race, but in the past few laps, Rick Mears has closed up and tried to challenge Michael at every opportunity. He sits just behind him now. At the same time, Bobby Rahal has been closing in on Mears. So, Jack DeRoot, the question is, what is the Mears strategy?
Well, originally before the drop of the green flag, the Mears strategy was to run in second for a while. I just talked to Richard Buck, though. He says, we didn't anticipate race traffic being as heavy so soon. They've radioed to Rick, be aggressive, go for the lead.
Well, Rick Mears is definitely doing that. John Andretti made a roll into the pits. His crew servicing that car. Jeff Wood also brought his car into the pits, as did Randy Lewis. The battle is at the front of the field. They're averaging near 155 miles an hour. That, of course, is well over the race record, but we're not yet down into a point where we have pit stops or yellow flags, which normally occur during the running of the 200 here at Phoenix.
You can just look and see the traffic problems, Paul. The cars that are coming around a lap are lapping the slow cars pretty fast.
Look at this as it's a challenge again. Danny Sullivan tries Mario Andretti to the inside. He's talking to him too, and Fittipaldi is right there.
Now Danny's trying to use traffic to get by Mario, but I'll tell you that Mario's a tough one. He's been here 39 times, as you mentioned earlier. He's really hard.
The Alfa Romeo team replaced the fine driver Roberto Guerrero with Danny Sullivan and paid Sullivan an awful lot of money. That what they really bought was a driver that they were sure could win races if the car was up to it. In other words, they reduced the variables on their team, and they have a lot of variables, what with a different engine than anyone else is racing. Whatever the mix they have, it is proving to be very competitive right now at Phoenix.
John Andretti was in and out of the pits in 14.5 seconds. Mark Dismore is in now. This is on the 21st lap, so they're all looking at handling problems. They really should go almost to 70 laps, even further, if they are going to get the distance necessary to do this race. We are continuing to watch Danny Sullivan as he challenges Mario Andretti. It is a fight for fourth place.
The amazing thing is that what Alfa's been looking for a couple of years now.
Look at this as Rahal challenges Mears for second, and Rahal takes second place. Rahal right down the inside and passed Rick Mears into second.
Well, I don't think Rick was ready for that one. He not only passed him, but drove right away for a while. I bet Rick is still trying to figure that one out, because I just don't think he expected it, Paul.
Is there a time there, Sam Posey, where a driver is so concentrating on what's happening in front loses track on a challenge that's coming?
You can in as heavy traffic as we're seeing here at Phoenix, but I doubt very much if Rick Mears was unaware of what's going on behind him, because he almost seems to have periscopic vision. He sees 360 degrees around the car.
Michael Andretti, this is the leader's point of view. Traffic so very critical here, Bobby. It seems that once you engage traffic in like lap 3, that's all you do for the rest of the day.
Well, and it's especially hard sometimes for the guys that are back in the pack. Often they'll get the move over flag for, like right here, we're on board with Michael. The guy will get the move over flag. You can see he doesn't really have a lot of traffic. One car merely in front of him. But when he catches the pack and he gets through it, the guys get all mixed up for the next guy behind.
Well, as we watch Michael Andretti before this race, we of course had a chance to talk to him. We asked him about traffic, and does it play a large role here at Phoenix? And does the setup, therefore, is it different than other ovals you run?
The fastest car doesn't always win this race, because a lot of times to set your car up fast here, you have to, trim it out a little bit, and when you come up on traffic, you lose all your downforce. So, there's two different ways to set your car up. And the guy that is smart and sets his car up for the traffic and not the speed is usually the guy that's better off.
Michael Andretti at the front of the field.
Michael led 8 of 16 races last year, led more laps than anyone, including the champion, Al Unser Jr.
Get a view of Rick Mears there, and right behind him is Mario Andretti. It seems like Rick is now struggling.
Yes, Paul, he's definitely got a handling problem. He's moving backwards. He's just not going his customary speed. Now, earlier he was getting off of number 2 faster than anybody and really gaining on Michael Andretti. Right now, he's just about to have Mario go by him.
Rick Mears has third, but Mario is right there. Danny Sullivan trying to worry Mario as well. They're on the backside, running into turn 3. They run flat through here. No braking in this point of the course. That is, of course, presuming that the car is handling well and there's no traffic just in front. Mario seemed to have a pretty good run on Rick going into the first during the last lap. Let's take a look here. Now Mario lets it go at that point. Let's check in again with Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, exactly what's happening to Rick Mears down here is he's just developed a bit of looseness. He's reported it back into the team here. There isn't much they can do about it until the first pit stop. They've checked tire pressures, and obviously they'll make a slight wing adjustment on that first stop around lap 66.
Danny Sullivan holds off a charging Emerson Fittipaldi. Sullivan sits in 5th. For a moment there, it looked like Sullivan was going to come up and take Mario, as the battle is now a 4-way fight again.
The engine problem that Sullivan mentioned he had at Long Beach last week cost him somewhere between 30 and 40 horsepower. He was totally uncompetitive there. As you can see, he's running very competitively here. That is the difference that 30 or 40 horsepower makes in this lead.
And what that was, Sam, it was in the wiring loom. There was a couple of wires rubbing together, causing the fuel injection to go lean rather than to go rich as it should have gone.
Well, Rick Mears now sits back from Bobby Rahal by almost 7 seconds. Rahal running in 2nd place. Michael Andretti took the lead on the opening lap, and now 32 laps later is still running in the lead.
Now this is totally typical for Rick, incidentally, to start a race, Paul, a little bit loose. Rick is the type of a race driver that runs his car loose. That means the rear end is a little bit on the loose side. Now, it's always faster that way until it gets too loose, and then it becomes too dangerous.
Michael Andretti, the leader of the race. He's led in all 3 races thus far in the PPG IndyCar World Series this year. Here's Mario, moves to the outside of Rick Mears. Traffic just ahead. Scott Pruitt, Scott Goodyear, and Mario uses the traffic to his advantage and moves forward.
But this is exactly, and now you
look at Danny Sullivan. Sullivan and Fittipaldi just behind. There goes Sullivan past Rick, and there goes teammate Fittipaldi going to make a try as well.
Still, this is the moment that Rick Mears does not panic. He's been in this situation before. He knows he has 2 pit stops coming up at least before the end of the race. Opportunities to rework his car, and you see him shoot by down on the inside. There's his wife, Chris.
Danny Sullivan got trapped in that maneuver, was forced down to the inside. Here's picking a car up into the wall. And that is Scott Goodyear. Oh, that's too bad. He was right in the middle of all that traffic, too.
Boy, there was a lot of traffic. Things were really getting busy right in there for a while, Paul.
So the yellow flag is out. The field flows for the first time here at Phoenix. Michael Andretti has the lead of the race, but we run under caution for the first time as Scott Goodyear, the young Canadian with such a spectacular career going, catches the wall while running in fairly heavy traffic. And in the pits, well, there's Emerson Fittipaldi as they make a change. Jack Arute.
Paul, they made a slight change, but the people that think this is just what they need is the Rick Mears team. The car was deteriorating quickly. They were forced to wait for a caution or for a yellow flag. They got the yellow. Rick brings the car down to a stop, and he locks it up, and they're going to make a wing adjustment. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
And Jack, Michael Andretti, Mario Andretti in tandem come in. Michael loved the balance of the car. The initial radio reports, we see no wing adjustments being made. It's routine with tires. Now they do make an adjustment. 1 full turn on the front wing left side as Michael lights it up and gets out of the pits, followed by his father Mario.
In the race out of the pits, there goes Michael. Mario just behind. Just behind them, Rick Mears will come into the order. This all being run under the caution as the crews go to work on Scott Goodyear's, and he's out of the car. He's fine. Let's go back to Jack Arute.
Paul, this couldn't have come at a better time, as we said, for the Rick Mears team. They added about a turn and a half into the left front wing, trying to solve that loose condition. Just 3 laps before the display of the caution, the car began to deteriorate and deteriorate badly. And Richard Buck was hoping for a caution, and you got it just as quick as you asked for it.
A little luck this time. Hang on just a second. Yeah, he's saying that the car was really loose and it kept deteriorating, and that's just all we needed was that yellow. So
Rather be lucky than good anytime, Paul.
Well, they got exactly what they needed. The field now pulls up behind the PPG safety car, and they work their way around the track. We'll be back with more after this. They do that when they take it off the car, in this case Rick Mears' tire. They may in fact have to use that tire and wheel assembly again, and they want to know exactly what its circumference is because that affects the stagger on the car. We are still under caution. Ari Leyendijk did not stop, and so he's picked up the lead of the race. Here's the accident that caused the caution.
Yes, and that accident looks like it was just a simple matter that Scott Goodyear lost it down there, Paul. It didn't look like anybody was close to him or touched him or had any interference with him. Just plain lost it. And it's easy to do. There's a lot of traffic. It doesn't take much at these speeds to get it loose.
Back the car into the wall, coming off of turn 2. Of course, turn 1 and 2 to the drivers. That's one continuous turn for them, and it's pretty easy for the back end to jump out. And Scott was trying to get up and clear a little bit of room for the leaders.
Yes, he certainly was. And on Rick Mears' deals with his tires, the reason they check them, Paul, he laid on that a little further when he comes in or when they change the tires, is so the mechanics know exactly what the stagger is, so they know what to adjust on the car later on. For example, we watched as he came into the pit, and they took downforce away from the front end, lowered the left front wing, so as the rear end wouldn't get loose quite so bad.
So now running around the circuit under caution next Saturday on ABC's Pro Bowlers Tour. It's the most prestigious event of the year, the $250,000 Firestone Tournament of Champions. And then on ABC's Wide World of Sports, the top female gymnasts as they compete in individual apparatus. It's the World Cup Gymnastics Championship, plus the Kentucky Derby Trial presented by John Deere Lawn Care Dealers, and the Clairol Option Challenge as Mark Spitz takes on Matt Biondi. It all begins next Saturday here on ABC Sports. A great afternoon of sports. Here at Phoenix International, Ari Leyendijk has the lead. He did not make a pit stop. Emerson Fittipaldi will line up in second place. Beautiful day for beautiful ladies. In third place, Bobby Rahal. In fourth place, it will be Michael Andretti, then Mike Groff. Now, Fittipaldi, Rahal, and Michael Andretti all made stops. Mike Groff did not make a stop. And then Mario Andretti, who also made a stop. Al Unser Jr., Rick Mears, Danny Sullivan, and Scott Brayton. That's Michael Andretti. Confident. He has the lead of the race in hand until this caution. I'm sure he's thinking, I can get that back, no problem.
Well, you know, to show how important it is on pit stops, Emerson Fittipaldi came in early, one lap ahead of the guy, stopped only 9 seconds by my time, Paul. He's in second place, and he did make a stop.
Further update, here's Gary Gerald.
And Paul, Vince Granatelli has Ari Leyendijk out in the lead. How much of a gamble, Vince, by leaving him out and not making the pit stop when all the other leaders came in?
Well, we got caught out there, but I think that we're going to be all right. I think that if we can manage to stay up in front for a little bit longer, we'll be in good shape.
Do you like the way the car's working thus far?
No, we have a little bit of a push right now. We need to have an adjustment made, but unfortunately, now isn't the time.
All right, that's the comment from Vince Granatelli. He and Mo Nunn calling the shots for Leyendijk, currently in the lead as we go to Jack Arute.
And Gary, one of the things we're finding is as the tanks go down in the Team Penske cars, the handling begins to go away, so they're a little bit concerned about that, Paul Page.
Well, that could have an adverse effect not only here, but later at Indy.
Leyendijk's team is based here in Phoenix, and sometimes you let a car stay out a little bit to lead a few laps at least in front of the hometown.
Now the pace begins to pick up as they come off the fourth turn. The pace car is in. Ari Leyendijk leading for the first time in an IndyCar race since last year's Michigan 500. Of course, the Indy 500 winner with Emerson Fittipaldi lined up in second place and moving to challenge.
No traffic for a while.
The roadway is clear for Leyendijk. Second place, Fittipaldi, car number 5. As with that caution flag, they all string out nicely again. Bobby Rahal, number 18, runs in third. And setting up right behind Rahal, you're on board with him now, Michael Andretti, trying to regain the position that he held at the front of the field. Complete for Michael Andretti. Let's ride, let's listen. No gear changes here.
can listen as we ride around with Michael. He's full of fuel, new tires on it. Now listen as he goes into turn 3. Backs off a little bit between turn 3 and 4, then gets on it wide open. Now, as we said earlier, they don't back off in 3 and 4, but not to contradict ourselves. That's for qualifying real fast speed. During the race, when they're full of fuel, and the track gets a little bit slippery, they have to back off a little bit.
Here's Al Unser Jr., the winner last week with Danny Sullivan sitting right behind him, and Sullivan challenging. Sullivan moving to the inside. Little Al slams the door. Fight here for 7th place. Wisely, Sullivan pulls back a bit. Looks to gather up some of that alpha power and try to run down on top of Little Al once again. Little Al's been fighting with the setup. In fact, Bobby Unser, didn't he just finally decide to go with Ray Hall's set?
Yes, he did. They tried a lot of different setups to his liking, and it didn't really work good. So last night they just took Ray Hall's entire setup from his car and put it on Little Al's car. They didn't take it off of a car. They just copied it. And so he's getting used to a new setup today, totally new.
Mario Andretti threads his way around some traffic. Rick Mears sits right behind Mario as they look at 5th and 6th place together on this circuit. And look at Ray Hall. Boy, he is really working his way around. Michael Andretti moves to 3rd.
Traffic is really rough here at Phoenix. When they're lapping cars like that, you can watch sometimes it really looks like the tires are going to touch each other. I think it's one of the roughest tracks on the entire circuit for traffic, Paul.
50 laps, 1/4 of the race already into the record book. Ari Luyendyk leads the race. You ride with Michael Andretti. Luyendyk led for 33 laps here 3 years ago until a pit fire knocked him out of competition. Boy, that was something to remember, too. There's Luyendyk, that brightly colored car.
He's been coming out almost every day in the off-season to this track, sometimes to practice with his car, sometimes just to look at the track. He lives here in Phoenix. He has not, of course, won a race since his incredible win at the Indianapolis 500 last year.
All right, Luyendyk, a lover of art when he is not behind the wheel. A beautiful art gallery here. Also finally confided a week ago that he is a collector of really exquisite models. He has some beautiful models sitting at home. Magnificent collection. A man who has a fine eye for detail. There's Danny Sullivan, the alpha-powered car. Sullivan runs in 7th place. Little Al back in 8th position right now. The leader of the race is still Ari Luyendyk. You can see the bright yellow car of John Andretti just behind him. But we remind you that John Andretti was in the pits early on, and that dropped him well behind the pace. Fittipaldi, 2nd place. So that gives you an idea of the distance that Emo needs to catch up. And his wife, Teresa Fittipaldi.
Remember that Emerson Fittipaldi has not scored any points at all so far this year. This means a lot to him.
Teresa expecting a baby soon. So Luyendyk now in the sights of this man, number 5, Emerson Fittipaldi, running in 2nd place.
And running in 3rd, Michael Andretti is dropping away.
Boy, look at Ari thread his way through traffic, outside, inside. What a nice run there. Wow.
Sometimes the guys that are getting lapped try to get out of the way, but as you can see from that good TV shot, it's difficult.
Well, and Scott Goodyear tried to get out of the way, and it cost him. They both thread down to the inside, go under Mashusta and Pruitt. And look at Michael. Whoa, look how high he gets. He wants to stay in touch with the lead of the race. Whoa.
This is a big chance for Michael because the leaders were slowed by that bunch of traffic. He had, as I said, been falling back from Emerson Fittipaldi. He made it all up in one chunk. Such is the nature of racing here on this oval at Phoenix.
And now Fittipaldi is right there at the back of Luyendyk. Here comes Michael trying to close Fittipaldi. All of them taking advantage of weaving in and out of traffic here. Michael Andretti, car number 2. So strong in his run at Long Beach. And now is trying desperately to catch up again as we look to the front of the field. Once again, there's Fittipaldi closing on Luyendyk. Fittipaldi closing in. Michael closing on Fittipaldi.
Now, Fittipaldi's people, the Penske crew, told him, in case he can't take time to look in the mirror, that Michael is coming on. And Michael sees a little bit of weakness there in Emo, so he's really going for it hard.
So Michael Andretti chopping right down behind Fittipaldi, but for the moment, they begin to separate And they run Lyondike, Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti, Bobby Rahal, and then Mario. We'll be back with more from the Valvoline 200. Wearing those lucky earrings sold by this woman, Teresa Fittipaldi, as she continues to cheer her husband on. And Emerson is sitting just behind Arie Luyendyk on the circuit, trying to close in, trying to pass, and trying to take the lead away from Arie Luyendyk. As a car into the wall, looked like Guido Dacco may have caught the wall in turn 3, and Arie Luyendyk very wisely goes for the pits. Indeed, that is Guido Dacco. Got up high, brushed the wall with the right side of his race car. The kart safety team already on the scene. The caution comes out, and Luyendyk heads for the pits. Gary Gerald.
We're watching the Arie Luyendyk crew. This is basically a new team since Mo Nunn came over. Big Jim Davis, Peter Parrott, who manages this team. They gambled. They wanted the yellow. They've got it. He's Austin Jackson back on track, and this is a happy pit crew.
Well, the yellow comes at 66 laps. It's the second yellow of the day. Bobby Rahal made a stop as well. Emerson Fittipaldi, you saw him stop. And there's Guido Dacco climbing out of his race car, and Michael Andretti makes his stop. He was so close. That battle was first, second, and third, with Michael sitting in third. This changes the complexion of that run.
Well, there's some of the other guys that are just now coming in, Paul, and they're going to go back in the serial. For example, Danny Sullivan. And that's going to really hurt him.
So under caution, with 67 laps now complete, Danny Sullivan, for the moment, moves up to the front of the order. Our second yellow of the day. We'll be back with more from Phoenix in just a moment. And still under caution. You can see them picking up Guido Dacco's car. For a moment, until he went into the pits, Danny Sullivan led. It's the first time Alfa Romeo has led. Let's go back and take a look at the situation that set up this caution from Scott Brayton's onboard camera. See, Dacco just seemed to kind of push up toward the wall as he came off. Now watch this. You think they don't hit this wall a ton? By the way, the cameraman there, Tim Collins, he's okay too. Guido's a little shaken up. Tim may be more shaken up. And look at the wall. Look at the crack. Tried to punch a hole in that thing.
That's a hard hit. That just shows you how hard those cars hit sometimes, why the drivers have their...
Slow motion from onboard Scott Brayton, Bobby.
Now just watch it going in. Each car just pivots. The rear end came loose. It was entering the corner right into the turn where the hardest place to keep the rear end under the car is, and it just jumped out and whammo right into the wall, and you can see it almost punched a hole through the wall.
Guido is 48 years old. It's tough to take a hit like that at that age. He lives in Monaco.
Of course, these cars with their composite materials, the carbon fiber, all drivers, of course, wearing extensive 6-point harness seatbelt that holds them tightly in the cockpit. They're very safe as well. Here's Gary Gerald.
Paul, during this yellow, Michael Andretti came in. He ran over some debris, cut down a rear tire, but the major concern, he says on the radio, has something to do with either a pop-off valve or something where he's not getting full efficiency. The crew is trying to monitor it. Mario Andretti stayed out on course during this particular yellow. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Gary, you and I have both seen some strange happenings down on pit road, but I've seen the strangest just now. And during that pit stop for the caution, Emerson Fittipaldi brought his car into the Team Penske pits and stopped in Rick Mears' pit. He looked up, saw black fire suits, and realized he had stopped in the wrong pit. Slapped it back into gear, came another 55 feet forward, got the service, went back out on the racetrack, lost some track positioning, and then radioed into Rick Reineman and the crew and said, "I'm sorry, I messed up."
Thinking back to last year, Fittipaldi's going to be very upset with himself over that one. Well, at the head of the field, it's Mario, then Eddie Cheever. Arie Luyendyk's now back to third. We anticipate a green shortly. Cars today are primarily constructed of a composite material like carbon fiber. It's very strong, but it's difficult to tell if it's flawed. Now there's an answer. For more on that, here's Gary Gerald.
One of the newest pieces of technology that's found in the paddock area for today's IndyCar competition is something that's been borrowed from the aerospace industry, where it's been used with great success on such projects as the Space Shuttle and also on the B-2 stealth bomber. This is an electronic chirography system. It's a complicated name that provides a safety tool here to check out the structural integrity of today's race car chassis. This is a laser This is a chirography camera with very sensitive optics mounted on top of it. The light from the laser is being reflected off of this rear racing wing. The image is then transmitted to this monitor back here. And what this unit does is see things that the naked eye couldn't possibly see. Now here's a piece of honeycomb chassis, aluminum, that has a carbon fiber skin. And when you look at it with the naked eye, it appears to be flawless, no problems whatsoever. But then you look closely at this particular picture that has been taken with this system, and you can see very definite signs of flaws and fatigues within this piece of honeycomb equipment. It's a great safety tool that helps ensure the fact that when a race car driver steps into the cockpit of his car, he's got the safest possible equipment at his disposal.
Some fascinating technology. The hand belongs to Carl Haas, the owner of Michael and Mario's cars, Newman Haas Racing. Now, he's watching his driver, Mario, under caution circulate in the lead. It's been 43 races since Mario has last won an IndyCar race. He hasn't led a lap here since 1988, but he won in that year. Mario's last win, of course, was in Cleveland back in 1988, and he looks and hopes for a win here today. Next Sunday on ABC Sports, we'll travel to England as the World League action continues. The Raleigh-Durham Skyhawks collide with the Monarchs of London. They're undefeated, by the way. Then at 4 o'clock Eastern, we'll span the globe of the past 30 years of sports tradition. It's ABC Wide World of Sports 30th Anniversary Special, all next Sunday here on ABC Sports.
You know, Carl Haas doesn't light that cigar, Paul. I just have to mention that really quick. He chews on it. He's a very nervous racer. He loves racing, so he chews on cigars. He doesn't smoke around the fuel.
Here's Eddie Cheever. We're on board with him. Highly unusual background even for a racing driver. Eddie is a Phoenix-born American who grew up in Rome. His family was living there because of his father's business.
Mario Andretti will see the green first as the leader of the race. You're on board with Michael. Eddie Cheever is second. Ari Leyendyk is third. Fittipaldi is fourth. Bobby Rahal is fifth. The green is out again. Battle at the front will be Cheever and Andretti when it takes place. There's Cheever with Leyendyk coming to the outside and challenging Cheever. A battle for second. Look at Ari dial around on the high side. Forces Cheever down a little bit.
Boy, they're almost touching tires there. Those tires couldn't have been 3 inches apart. That's a dangerous thing to do, Paul.
Boy, what a fight.
Intimidation. That's what that was all about.
Yeah, there was a little question there. Get out of my way, Eddie. I know where I'm going. Ari just behind Cheever.
When Ari is having a hot day, he's an uneven performer, but when he is having a hot day, he is as good as anybody in this business.
Well, and he's been aggressive today, Sam.
Whoa. Bobby, he's a lot like your brother Al in that way, that when the car is right, he's almost unbeatable.
Well, absolutely. Some of the drivers are that way. Little Al, for example, has taken that trait from his father. Whereas you look at Michael, on board with Michael right there, hey, it doesn't make any difference what that car's handling like. He's going to run it just as hard as it's capable of, or even harder. Michael
Andretti was the early leader of the race, now runs in 7th place. Of course, we've had Michael lead it, Ari Leyendyk led it, Danny Sullivan led it, and right now Mario Andretti out in front. They are below the record at 111 miles an hour. The record's up at 138. The race record held by Roberto Guerrero. Now, Bobby Rahal going to try Fittipaldi. Battle for 4th.
If we kind of notice all day or so far,
look at Mears.
Really working on Rahal there.
You see, there have been so many yellows that Rick has had the chance to retune the suspension and the aerodynamics of his car. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see him very competitive in this part of the race.
Definitely Rick the man to watch at the moment. You got a glimpse there of the rearward viewing camera from Eddie Cheever's car as Fittipaldi closed in. There the fight continues.
Now, I started to say a bit ago, you see Mario in the lead just running away with it right now. The race has really not been up in front or in the lead of the pack. The race has been back in the back because the leader runs in mostly clean air, Paul.
Boy, look at Fittipaldi close in on the back of Eddie Cheever in a fight for 3rd place. And Fittipaldi sticks his nose in, tries to get some clean air, comes to the inside. Rahal closes. Rick Mears closes. 4 cars battling now for 3rd place, so you're looking 3rd through 7th.
And remember again, these are air cars. These are very, very aerodynamic cars, and if they get in bad air, they have bad handling problems. So you see the cars getting off, and sometimes you see them back off a little bit. The car that's trying to pass and then taking another run at them.
Eddie was once a vegetarian, but since he moved back to the U.S., he's come to be on a first-name basis with waitresses at the Burger King and McDonald's. He's, I think, making up for all those years of lost junk food.
All right, update on Eddie Cheever. Here's Jack Arute.
Paul, he's again just happy to be in the race. About an hour before they gave the command to start engines, they had an electronic problem. It seems the wiring harness had developed a short. They couldn't find it, weren't sure how to repair it. The man that's in charge of all the radios for CART happened to walk by, identified the problem. They made one small solder, and all of a sudden the problem went away.
Eddie Cheever, when this race is over, will head back to his home in Italy. Hasn't seen his daughter for a long time. Wants to spend some time with her. Not the only one heading for Italy. I'm going to go and take a look at Rick Mears. Look at Rick Mears inside Ray Hall. And Mears picks up 5th place.
Now, since we saw Rick leading the race earlier, he's had 2 times in the pits, 2 chassis adjustments.
And look at Michael. Michael's right there, too. Oh, as they work through traffic, where's Michael going to go? He's going to the outside. Wow!
That was a pass. That was a pass and a half. That's been the best pass all day.
That takes nerve. Boy, it's frightening when you're up there in what's called the loose stuff. It's just the little bits of gravel that accumulate outside of the racing line.
The fight continues. Michael Andretti really showed courage there. He wants that lead again, and he wants it bad. Mario Andretti has the lead by over 3 seconds now. Lyondike is second. Cheever, Fittipaldi, Mears, Rahal, Michael Andretti, they're all right together. Let's get an update from Gary Gerald on Michael.
Well, Paul, he has a problem they think that relates to the wastegate, and the crew wants Michael to pit. And just about the time he made that move, he stayed on the track, of course. He called back and said, wait a minute. So they're waiting. They want him in to work on the wastegate, but he's got himself a handful of racing going on in that traffic.
In other words, hold the phone, I'm a little busy right now. Let's take a look at that again. Look at Michael. He moves to the outside of Maschusta, up into marbles, up into gray stuff. There's no traction there.
No, there really isn't, Paul. Not only that, that's 3 abreast in the turn, and a turn that's really hard to run 2 abreast in.
And I should point out, you can't do that at Phoenix, can you, Bobby?
Theoretically, you can't do it, but he did.
Michael just disproved that one. An incredible racing driver, Michael Andretti. What a day he's having. By the way, you will remember last week there was a pit confrontation between Michael Andretti and that man, Emerson Fittipaldi. And when we left the air, they both were trying to blame the other. Well, Fittipaldi, after the race, viewed the tapes and said, no, Michael's right. I was waved out just a little bit early. Eddie Cheever, Emerson Fittipaldi in 4th place, just behind. 90 laps are complete. 90 miles. The scheduled distance, 200 miles here. So we're now 10 away from the halfway point. There's Teddy Mayer as he watches from the Penske stand, keeping track of Emerson Fittipaldi.
Mayer, for years, the mastermind behind the McLaren team, which, of course, is dominant now in Formula One.
Fittipaldi trying again on Cheever. Coming right back. Moves to the inside. Mears, teammate to Fittipaldi, runs in 5th place.
Often when you see him pull off like he did, Paul, he wasn't going to pass there. He was just trying to get some air in those radiators. These cars are just like a lot like stock cars. If you run too close too long, the exhaust comes directly out of the back and it'll heat up your radiators.
Danny Sullivan just behind Mario Andretti. This is a battle for 7th place. Danny Sullivan, very game, staying in this fight.
Behind Michael Andretti. Michael has lost the speed that he had earlier. No question, here comes Danny as they head into turn 3.
Michael Andretti to the outside, Danny to the inside. Remember, Michael has been experiencing some power plant problems. The crew would love to get him in to try and get it fixed.
Danny's the guy that they say is not a real good oval track racer all the time, but a super good road racer. But today, I'd have to say he looks like a
look at this fight, too. Here is Cheever as he comes up behind the slower John Andretti. And Emo and Rick are right there fighting just behind him. Cheever gets past John. Now the 2 Penske cars line up.
I think they're going to need a traffic engineer out there, Paul. Look at that. Back and forth, 3 and 4 abreast.
Rahal comes up to challenge with Rick. You're looking at a fight that's taken you all the way back to 7th place on board with Michael. That's cousin John just ahead.
And there goes Danny Sullivan right past Michael. You saw the pass from Michael's car.
I've never seen Phoenix like this. They're racing everywhere they can on the track. Why, Bobby? Why?
We might not have seen it early in the race, but the guys have decided now, hey, it's time to go for it. This is almost like it. We're the last part of the race, and we're not even halfway into it yet.
But there's so much more than that. Is there something new on the car, something aerodynamic that they found that allows this?
Not really, Paul. This is just plain racing. These guys are good racers. All of them, they're best in the world, and they've just decided to go racing right now.
Eddie Cheever.
Wow.
His nose alongside Scott Pruitt, then thanks Scott while still turning off the corner.
Well, I wouldn't take my hand off the wheel ever, would you?
You know, Cheever's very good at that. You watch him on the onboard camera. If he can, when he moves by somebody, he thanks them for giving him room.
Now just remember, this is only his second year in IndyCar racing. He came from Formula One racing, all-road racing, so the guy is still learning, but look how much he's gained in a year.
He's pretty tall on the learning curve. Fittipaldi, former world champion, moves up to challenge Eddie Cheever. He's been here before. He's going to try it again and again until he can get past. Cheever's not going to have any of it. Cheever runs a fairly wide line through the dog leg, trying to keep Fittipaldi's momentum back as best he can. The ongoing battle for third place. Mario Andretti leads. Leyendyk is second. And Ari Leyendyk is closing in on Mario Andretti. Let's take a look back. There goes Mario coming through, right number 6 in red on his car. That's Scott Brayton just ahead of him. And there is Leyendyk. Whoa, just a wink of an eye. 0.8 of a second back. So the fight now is back at the front of the field. On board with Scott Brayton's car, that is Mario just behind him. So now you get a good view as Mario comes wide to overhaul Brayton. And Leyendyk, look at Leyendyk with a lower line. Leyendyk, drag race alongside Mario, pushes him high to the outside. Fight for the lead. Ari Leyendyk has it for the moment at the halfway point in this race. 100 laps complete, 100 miles, and Ari Leyendyk back to the front, in front of the hometown crowd.
I was standing with Ari yesterday in the pit area. His son, who's 10 years old, spotted him from about 100 feet away, came running over to him and gave him a great big hug. He was excited even then at Ari's qualifying. I can only imagine his reaction now as he watches his dad.
Scott Brayton still sits in front of Ari, though Ari is the leader of the race. There's a great view from Scott Brayton's onboard camera. And Mario Andretti just back a few feet, still very definitely in that fight for the lead.
You can see how hard passing is, Paul, because that camera's seen 2 leaders back there already, and yet neither one's gotten by Scott Brayton. So, you know, the air that the car in the front stirs up really messes up the second place or on back car.
Watching from Scott Brayton, who is in 10th, trying to stay on the leader lap. Mario Andretti swings to the outside, tries to use traffic, it doesn't work.
Now, he was hoping that Leyendyk was going to get pitched behind that car and got blocked. Mario's gambling on that.
Boy, it seems like they found lines here at Phoenix this year that have never existed before. We watched the battle for the lead. They worked past Mashusta. Number 9 is Ari Leyendyk. Scott Brayton, number 22, 10th place, just ahead. Mario pacing behind Leyendyk.
You can see what Mario lost in that one abortive attempt to get by Ari on the back stretch. It's been 2 laps now. Mario's still trying to gather the momentum up again, and I think he's got it now. He's coming up again on Ari, but it takes that long if you're slow.
Well, with this fight, and with them trying to navigate around Brayton, the rest of the field, Cheever, Fittipaldi, Rick Mears, and Rahal are beginning to close in. Well, very shortly, it should be about a 6-way battle for the lead. There is Ari Leyendyk running at the head of the race. There's Mario coming up, trying to close in as best he can. And Leyendyk is still trying to handle up on Scott Brayton just in front. There you go. Get out of my way. I've gotten the leader of the race. I want to come by, and I've got a whale of a challenge from Mario just behind me. So the fight continues at the front. And Leyendyk is trying to wave him over. Can he get him now? No, he still can't.
Now, Scott Brayton has been getting the move-over flag. He's not in the same lap. He's been getting it from the starter.
Of course, that's advisory only. It's not a command to move over. Here, Ari finally makes the try, and look at Cheever. Cheever comes by Mario and picks up 2nd place at the same time. Looking back from Eddie Cheever now. That's Mario just behind him. And now it appears that Mario, no, he's still right there. Mario looked to come off the pace a bit. And now Cheever has to handle up Scott Brayton.
I'd say that camera got a little bit dirty back there. Well, it's a dirty place to be.
Less than 3 seconds separate the first 6 positions. Led by Leyendyk, Cheever, Fittipaldi, Mario Andretti, Rick Mears, and Bobby Rahal. All running right together. Just behind Rahal is Michael. and then Danny Sullivan. The first 8 are right together on this track, all within 7 seconds.
You can see the trust that Cheever has in young Scott Brayton, trying him on the outside there. Brayton is doing a good job. He's racing these men that are a little bit faster. He's not just giving away his position. After all, he is in a battle himself for position. Again on board Brayton, and that, we mentioned it earlier, you're looking back at Eddie Cheever. He is the second place driver. Of course, Arie Luyendyk is out in front. We mentioned earlier, in many cases, if a car is just a little bit off the pace, it's very difficult to get past. Eddie Cheever raised his hand and is trying to wave Scott Brayton out of the way as well. Sometimes if you raise your hand there on the start-finish straight, what you're really hoping to do is to get the flagman to wave the blue flag at the man ahead of you, too. You're signaling to him. All right, taking Eddie Cheever's view as he moves up alongside Scott Brayton. There's Brayton's view back to Cheever. And the momentum was lost in that corner. Remember that one of the reasons it's so hard to make the pass is that when you're behind a car, it cuts off the aerodynamics to your car. Looking at Mika Luyendyk as she watches her husband run the lead with 111 laps complete. As fast as he can and trying to haul his way up through the field. The leader of the race is Luyendyk. Now take a look. We look all the way back to Michael Andretti, and there he is. So Michael's definitely closing the distance. Third place is Fittipaldi, then Rahal, then Sullivan, then Rick Mears, then Al Unser Jr., then 8th is Scott Brayton. Eddie Cheever has dropped back to 9th, and Mario Andretti's dropped back to 10th. Mario made a pit stop on lap 114 for just about 15 seconds, put him off the pace by a lap and a half. We look down through the running order, not at the moment, but at 100 laps, the entire field.
You know, as we watch right here on board with Michael Andretti, you see something in the front of his windshield is sticking up, just so the people know that's a little inspection cover, a little door where they can get down and work on the car down in the tub. It's nothing wrong if it comes loose, unless somebody ran over it, but it wouldn't hurt Michael, Paul.
Down the pits, let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, what Bobby Unser is talking about, Paul, here's an Andretti backup car. This is the access area, and the panel is loose down in the nose. They get in here to change springs and to make adjustments with the brakes or the radio. That's what's loose. That's what you're seeing flopping up. It doesn't seem to be a real safety hazard, and thus far it doesn't seem to be impacting his performance. Paul?
Sam Posey, I wonder how distracting would it be to a driver?
It can be very distracting to certain drivers. They really get shaken up when their equipment isn't just so. Michael Andretti is not that kind of a guy. Because of his years of experience, thanks to his dad, he knows to put that stuff right out of his mind. He's very disciplined that way.
Well, this is a mental sport. Concentration is such a key factor. It's the kind of thing that nags at the edge of concentration, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but on the other hand, if you can push it out of your mind, you get a certain kind of self-confidence.
The front of the field, Arie Luyendyk, Michael Andretti, 7 seconds back.
Yes, and I've been watching the speed between Arie Luyendyk and Michael, and ironically, looked like Michael was moving up on him. Right now, Arie is moving away from Michael right now, Paul.
Average speed of the race, 116 miles an hour. Rick Mears made a pit stop on the 119th lap. We're at 122 now. In and out for 13 seconds. He fell a lap and 3/4 behind the race. The pit strategy very shortly could be critical here today. Look at that, they're 3 abreast again. Whoa! You're looking back from Scott Brayton's car. There's Mario, Eddie Cheever right in there, coming right up behind Rick. A fight with Cheever. Wow, takes your breath away. Jack Arute, you have an update.
Paul, you're talking about pit strategies. Let's go back to that first caution period. Remember when they brought out the yellow and all the leaders came in to take advantage? Well, the one team that you talked about that didn't is behind me. They're now leading the race. That, of course, was the Granatelli Uno Racing team of Arie Luyendyk. That has now put them, so to speak, out of sequence with some of the other leaders. They will come in around lap 140, take on the remaining fuel, and then be able to go the distance to the checkered flag. Some smart thinking by this team early on in the race.
Well, Jack Arute, part of the concern was whether or not everyone would have enough fuel to run a torrid pace. Is that a concern still?
So far, we have not heard anything on pit road where anybody has any concerns, but that won't begin to develop until the later stages. So far, everybody's pleased with fuel consumption.
Fittipaldi just behind Michael Andretti, the 5 car of Fittipaldi, the 2 car of Michael Andretti. Gary Gerald, an update on Michael.
Well, Paul, we understand that the Brain Trust here is having a debate about whether or not they should bring him in. They wanted to make an adjustment earlier. They thought they had a wastegate problem or a pop-off valve problem. Now, Michael, as we understand it, wants to take it as long as they can. Remember, if they can get to about 135 laps complete, they make the stop. That would be the final of the race. So the debate rages here in the Michael Andretti pit.
Jeff Andretti makes a stop, not in the front of the competition. He runs in 12th place. There's Fittipaldi, 3rd place, trying to chase down Michael Andretti. And Arie Luyendyk just ever so slowly beginning to pull away from the rest of the field, running 6 seconds ahead of the 2nd place Michael Andretti.
You know, looking at Emerson Fittipaldi, Paul, it makes one wonder. Now, I think all of us kind of predicted that the Penske cars would run away with this race. All during practice and qualifying, they looked like they had a distinct advantage. Now, during the race, it would appear that the Lolas have done a good setup because the Penske cars have been having more than their share of running behind.
Bobby Rahal, you saw him, took a higher line going into 1 as he set up Fittipaldi in a fight for 3rd place. There's 3rd and 4th, Fittipaldi and Bobby Rahal. You know, we were talking with Fittipaldi before the race. We asked, as a regular driver, when you're going to pass somebody, you notice to see the guy in his mirror. Can you tell if a race car driver sees you in his mirror?
Yes. Normally you see a movement from the head, and the movement from the head, you realize that he's looking you in the mirror. And passing a slower car, normally a guy who's driving slow, he must have a reason to be driving slow. Or his car is bad, or he's a new driver, or he's a rookie, he's not used, or he's not comfortable on the track. That means most of the time he's not looking in the mirror because he's enough busy with himself to keep up the speed and be on the track. I mean, that's a really critical situation when you're catching people. Can you realize they are really busy with their own work?
Fittipaldi with Bobby Rahal trying to close in for a moment there. Couldn't get the job done. I was going to say earlier that along with Fittipaldi and Danny Sullivan and Scott Pruitt, when this race is over, several of us are going to climb on an airplane and head off toward the Saudi Arabia area and visit some of the troops. And Fittipaldi and Sullivan, Pruitt, boy, they're looking forward to it. And go visit some Navy ships, a nuclear carrier assigned out there. Now we watch as Michael Andretti, you can see his crew is ready for him. Michael, will he pull off here? Nope. He's going to stay out.
One of the things that'll be interesting to see, which everybody will be wondering, will they try to fix that little door that's just hanging loose, Paul, or will they just rip it off and leave it off or try to put it back on?
Bobby Rahal challenges Fittipaldi on the backside, and Rahal pushes past him, but Fittipaldi's staying right there. It's a fight for 3rd, and Rahal has it.
He definitely gets by, but I was saying on that little door, it really shouldn't be hurting Michael except to distract him in his driving. So he may want him just to take it off and pitch it.
After 125 laps, look at the picture in the corner of your screen. That's Danny Sullivan up now charging on Fittipaldi. They're going to have something to talk about on the plane. The summary, Arie Luyendyk, the leader of the race, we're averaging 123 miles an hour to the 125th lap. We're actually on 135 right now, so we're still well down from Roberto Guerrero's record. Speaking of Guerrero, he's here this weekend. In fact, he's been seen a lot talking with Derek Walker. So there is certainly the anticipation that there may be some sort of team forming together there for a lot of people to hope. Well, Derek Walker early in the year had talked to Danny Sullivan and hoped to get him on board with his team.
Yes, Derek Walker would definitely like to get his own team like he had with the Porsche cars and get Roberto Guerrero back.
Michael Andretti heads for the pits. Gary Gerald waits.
And Paul, we watch the Newman-Haas team. This may be the last service of the day. Let's just watch and listen. You see the panel in front hanging. We'll watch and see how they attend to it. Everything routine with tires and fuel. One full turn down on the wing. Now they put the panel back in place. They're going to have to tape it. This is taking a little more time than they expected. Now he's rolling.
21.5 seconds for Michael Andretti. What was holding it on? Oh, was the radio, the communications antenna, and the wire that connects it.
And that's why they didn't take the panel off, is it changed the aerial for the radio.
Absolutely right, Sam. We all discovered that one.
Back to the pits, Jackaroo.
They're just 2 laps, actually maybe as much as 3 laps away from this team servicing Arie Luyendyk for the final time this afternoon. We asked them if they're going to make any chassis adjustments. They said no. I asked how long will they stay in the pits. They said simply to take every ounce of fuel they have left in the tank in hopes of bringing him home to a checkered flag.
4th place, Emerson Fittipaldi, in and out of the Penske pits, 16 seconds. Arie Luyendyk's lead is beginning to go away as Bobby Rahal has now closed to just under 5 seconds on the back of Luyendyk. But both Luyendyk and Rahal are due for a pit stop. And there's Luyendyk on pit road. Here's Jackaroo.
Arie Luyendyk calmly comes into pit road. Let's listen to the service from his team. High revs from the engine, taking on all that fuel. He kicks it back into gear. He's down and lights up the tires, and he's away, Paul Page.
17.2 seconds as he comes along Rahal and gets past him. So Luyendyk in and out of the pits. Danny Sullivan picks up the lead, but Luyendyk, when Sullivan pits, may be able to get it back. There's Danny Sullivan, the 20 car.
Well, you can see how important pit stops are right there. Man, I mean, that Gallus crew is trying to get Sullivan out quicker.
Sullivan slows down. He's ready to come into the pits. Gary Gerald is waiting again.
And we watch with the crew, and they anxiously await as the Alpha comes rolling in after its best qualifying effort. Sullivan has been a contender all day, and they're now at work. And again, we watch and we listen as this crew services Danny Sullivan for the last time. A quick flip of the throttle, engages the clutch. He's ready to roll. Just under 16 seconds, Paul.
You see Scott Brayton making his stop as the green continues to wave here, and Luyendyk picked up the lead from Danny Sullivan when Sullivan went into the pits. So Arie Luyendyk is back out in front again. His first win in the IndyCars came at the Indianapolis 500 last year. Is he looking at number 2? Well, there's a good group of drivers directly behind him, including Bobby Rahal and Danny Sullivan, that definitely want a piece of the action. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. The Penske cars, Rick Mears and Emerson Fittipaldi battle for 3rd place, and Rick comes around Emo and picks up 3rd. Rick has been steadily moving back through this field and climbing his way up the order. Remember, he was the pole sitter. That position taken away from him on the first lap by Michael Andretti, and then Michael had engine problems and fell backwards. Arie Luyendyk finally assumed the lead after Danny Sullivan took over. Luyendyk is back there again, but Rick Mears, who set a new track record to set that car on the pole, is charging up through this field, now setting his sights on 2nd place Bobby Rahal.
We talked about Rick's patience at the beginning. He is now running in a position that would give him 41 championship points at the end of the day and put him in 2nd place in the championship. But the man right ahead of him on the track, Bobby Rahal in the blue and yellow car, you see it right there, who of course has been so successful in scoring points so far this year that he came into this race as the points leader. He, if the race ended right now, would have 48 points. He is having a very big day for himself because his teammate, Al Unser Jr., is currently way back in 9th in the hopes of this team ride with Bobby Rahal today.
I tell you, I got a lot of grief from Robert Rahal. There's the teammate, Al Unser Jr., who runs in 9th place, but his teammate, Rahal, really was all over me last week. I said that little Al has just won 4 in a row at the same track, and that's never been done. And so poor old Bobby Rahal said, what, have you forgotten about me in Laguna Seca? My apologies, Mr. Rahal.
He earned that little gripe he had for you, Paul.
He sure did. Well, Rick Mears last pitted on the 119th lap. 81 laps from there to the finish. Can he make it? Let's check in with Gary Gerald.
That's the question. That's the question that Richard Buck and Roger Penske have been pondering, and they haven't reached a decision, or if they have, they won't share that information with us at this point, Paul. They know they're cutting it close, but the major problem for Mears, the car has been loose all afternoon, and they've been chasing this very delicate racetrack. Let's go to Jackaroo.
Gary, a lot of people may be saying, where is this newfound competitiveness for the Arie Luyendyk team? Well, there's two gentlemen here that have been added to the team in 1991 that may account for some of it. Mo Nunn, the man when he was with this same team, the Vince Granatelli team, gave Roberto Guerrero his victory. An engineer extraordinaire, he is now with the team. And Peter Parrott, formerly of the Team Penske and then went with the Porsche team, well, he has now been added to this Uno Granatelli team as well, and they are quite a brain trust to have for the Dutchman.
Oh, that's a formidable challenge. Those two are some of the best in the business.
Yeah, Arie, who you see ducking down there inside, Scott Brayton in the turn, and now we're on board with Brayton as he follows Luyendyk. Arie told me that working with Mo Nunn is fascinating, that Mo has a definite system by which he sets the car up, and everyone has what they have to do in a special sequence. Well, they struggled all through practice and all through qualifying here, and with no success until right now as the race matures, they've hit the right setup. Better late than never.
Absolutely. Arie Luyendyk leads. Drivers out of the race: Jeff Wood, Scott Goodyear, Guido Dacco, Randy Lewis, Al Unser, and Tony Bettenhausen. That's Mo Nunn. Just beside him there on the outside, that's Vince Granatelli, and of course Mika Luyendyk, Peter Parrott. They're all right there together, and they are worrying about this car. Can they keep it out in front? They seem pretty confident that they can. We'll be back right after this. Battle for third place. For the moment, Mears has it, but Fittipaldi has been staying right with his teammate. Leader of the race is Arie Luyendyk. Second place, Bobby Rahal, then Mears, then Fittipaldi, and there's Danny Sullivan.
You saw Rick Mears get loose there for a split second.
Look at Fittipaldi as he takes it away. Now Sullivan is right there.
That was the little slide that Rick suffered, and you see now he's under pressure from Danny. That's that lost momentum we spoke about earlier that had afflicted Michael Andretti.
Again, the former teammates, Sullivan, Mears.
Now he has to be very defensive. Rick has to be defensive. There's Chris. She knows this, that she can feel what's going on in the cockpit. They have marvelous communication.
Fight is for fourth place now. Sullivan, Mears, Luyendyk still leads. Average speed of the race, 127 miles an hour. Still 11 miles off of Roberto Guerrero's record pace.
See, now Rick has gotten his momentum back. He is doing a fabulous defensive job of driving. He's struggling with a car that threatens to jump out from underneath him at any moment.
Bobby, when you talk about being a little bit defensive, as Sam just did, what we're really talking about is maybe moving over just a couple of inches, isn't it?
Yeah, so all it takes is a few inches, or we can call it just a few feet. It isn't a large distance at all. Just enough to mess up the other guy. In most cases, what they're messing up is the air behind. I think we've mentioned several times that these cars are just total aerodynamic.
Sullivan tries, but he gets bottled up behind Mashusta and still continues to fight with Rick Mears. Jack Arute.
Paul, you talk about luck during the course of a race. Bobby Rahal came in for a pit stop after Guido Dacco hit the wall. This here is a sizable piece of shrapnel from Guido Dacco's gearbox. It became lodged in Bobby Rahal's car. They actually had to pry it loose when he came in for the pit stop.
Didn't seem to hurt him any. Rahal's running in second place, 5 seconds behind the leader, Luyendyk.
In traffic, the same old thing that's been getting him all day is really bothering. Rahal seems to be always caught in the traffic. Luyendyk, on the other hand, seems to get through it real easy.
Rick Mears rolls in. Gary?
Indeed, Paul, he comes to a stop, and that black-clad Marlboro crew goes to work. It's been a loose race car all day. It's created handling problems. It's probably going to keep him from a third straight victory here at Phoenix International Raceway. He's down off the jacks quickly in just over 10 seconds. Terrific stop, but it comes under green late in the race.
And there's the question already answered about Rick Mears, and in that stop, he fell downward. Now runs in 7th place as he crosses over the start-finish line in the pits itself.
And keep in mind, he can't make enough adjustments this late in the race to do him much good. In other words, somehow or another they missed their setting early in the practice yesterday, Paul.
Bobby Rahal, 2nd place, 4.5 seconds back from Arie Luyendyk. We asked him, how disciplined do you have to be in the cockpit when you're racing the short ovals?
Well, I think any oval, especially here, but even Indianapolis or what have you, if the car isn't capable of doing it, it's not going to do it. I don't care who you are. And the discipline comes in listening to your head and not your heart, to putting your ego in the back drawer. you know, when you get out in that car, yeah, your ego is there, but your ego should never be making the decisions for you.
Bobby Rahal came to this track with a car well suited to it. He's really had the number all weekend long.
Jack Arute talked to him yesterday, and he made the point that Bobby really admitted that he had become too preoccupied with his various business ventures in the last year and hadn't asked enough of himself in the cockpit. He is extremely focused this year.
Rahal closes in on Lyondike, now 3.2 seconds back. Fittipaldi just a few seconds behind that in third place. Then Michael Andretti, then Danny Sullivan. It's going to be a devil of a finish. We'll be back. And in the Craco Gallus operation, well, they keep track of second place, Bobby Rahal. The leader is this man, car number 9, Arie Luyendyk. The Vince Granatelli. And just behind him, there's Rahal. 2 seconds back. Rahal is very definitely closing the gap. They have 19 laps left to go. Bobby, I'd say there's a real good chance they're going to be together for the finish.
Rahal's been trying, but I've also been noticing he hits the traffic wrong. You know, some days it's your days, some days it's not. Luyendyk has been getting through the traffic a whole lot better than Bobby has, and of course it could change, Paul, because traffic changes every lap.
Rahal won the kart PPG championship in 1986 and 1987. He is no stranger to leading it, and he must know that today he is helping himself immensely in the championship situation, even if Arie Luyendyk were to win the race.
Maury Cranes, who watches over as one of the partners in the Gallus Craco operation, keeps track of Bobby Rahal, has been with him for several years. Remember, last year, the Indianapolis 500, first place, Arie Luyendyk. Second place, Bobby Rahal.
Bobby just doesn't seem to have quite the speed that Luyendyk does. I think right there, Morris Nunn, the guy with a hat on his head, he's the brains behind that team. He's the guy that had Guerrero going so fast a couple of years back.
Traffic's having an adverse effect on Rahal as he dropped almost 4 seconds now behind the leader. Fittipaldi still in third.
Remember, Paul, you bring up that Arie Luyendyk beat Bobby Rahal at the Indy 500 last year. He did so with a superb pass near the end of the race. He was the hunter at that point, and Rahal the hunted. The roles are really reversed right now as Rahal is closing in inexorably on Luyendyk.
185 miles complete, 15 miles to go. Fittipaldi now begins to stalk Rahal. Again, traffic will be the factor.
Rahal obviously wants to win. That's apparent. And yet at the same time, he knows how valuable, in the context of the championship situation, a second place could be today.
Well, you know, sometimes when you go down through a busy city like Phoenix and you catch all the traffic lights just right, you think, man, I was famous today. Sometimes you go down, you catch them all red. That's what Bobby Rahal's been doing all day, where Luyendyk seems to catch all those lights green.
Luyendyk is having a tremendous day. Rahal falls further back, 4.5 seconds, and now he has to defend his position from Fittipaldi.
I know that if Luyendyk wins, there is the sense that this was an upset. He didn't qualify that well, and after all, it will be only his second IndyCar victory. The other one, of course, being the Indianapolis 500. But in a sense, Arie Luyendyk's abilities qualify him to win on a regular basis.
Arie Luyendyk, car number 9, still in front. Jack Arute.
Paul, remember after the Indianapolis 500, Doug Shearson decided to not fold his team but sell out to Bob Tezak and Uno. That was a disgruntled team for the rest of the year. They didn't do a lot of testing, and Luyendyk, in fact, told us this week they tested this year with this newfound team more at Phoenix than they did for the entire season last year at all the racetracks on the IndyCar circuit. So that accounts for some of his strong muscle today.
In the last 6 years here at Phoenix, Arie has driven for 5 different car owners. Maybe he'll win for Bob Tezak and Vince Granatelli. Mika Luyendyk puts another lap into the record book, as Arie does on the track. 189 now complete. Fittipaldi is still closing on Rahal. We'll be back. Still climbing all over the back end of Bobby Rahal in a fight for second place. Luyendyk still leads it. Let's get an update from Gary.
All the problems for Bobby Rahal, according to Barry Green, he thinks that they overcooked the right rear tire. That's why it went from under 2 seconds back to 4, and why Rahal has got his hands full trying to hold off Fittipaldi right now. Paul?
Fittipaldi closes in again with 5 laps to go on the second place Rahal. When you get a look at the back of Fittipaldi's car, it looks like it may be debris. Is that all it is, Bobby?
Yes, it looks like it's just paper that's hung back up on the transmission. Comes out from the tunnels and holding it right there. That's all it is, a piece of paper.
Just flapping in the wind there. Nothing that will affect the performance of the car.
Were Rahal able to hang for second place, and that's very much in doubt, it would be his 3rd consecutive second place this year in the season.
Out in front, still Ari Luyendyk, now 7.5 seconds in the lead for his owner, Vince Granatelli. He hasn't been in victory lane since 1987 at Mid-Ohio with Roberto Guerrero.
Now, Fittipaldi sees that Rahal has got a weakness. He sees that, and he's pushing very hard. If his right rear tire is too hot, got too hot and kind of cooked it, as Gary said, then what he's trying to do is make it worse, and that's what he's going to do right till the last turn of the last lap.
Our number 9, Ari Luyendyk. Boy, what a boost this will be going to the Indianapolis 500. He flashes across the line again. 2 laps to go.
You know, last year, after he won the Indianapolis 500, a lot of people said that he couldn't. Oh, that was a close one.
And look, Rahal slows down there. Rahal drops well off the pace. Danny Sullivan comes into the pits while we watch this fight right here, and something very definitely wrong with Rahal as Fittipaldi and Michael both come past.
Well, he lost his momentum, got past on both sides at one time.
Yellow flag comes out with the white flag at the same time. There's the problem.
Sullivan had been running 5th. He was having that good a day. 3 laps from the end, he was running 5th.
And so as the white flag waves with the yellow, here's the man that's going to benefit the most.
Could get the race, could be given the race, so to speak, under yellow.
That would be because the oil got on the track from the Alpha that the yellow came out, the best we can figure right now.
Well, with the pace they've been running, they couldn't have taken the chance. Now, slowly, more slowly than before, behind the PPG pace car, Ari Luyendyk will see the twin checkered flags, scoring his 2nd IndyCar victory. And the tremendous momentum, Meek is happy about that. I'm sure the whole team is just ecstatic. And what kind of momentum? Look at Ari, he drifts over to wave to his team as he passes by the pits. There's a happy man. And boy, is he set now for the Indianapolis 500. It's the first yellow flag finish that we've had here at Phoenix since back in 1977. The Flying Dutchman, Ari Luyendyk, is out in front. Oh, listen to that. We're back.
I got him. Here's Vince Granatelli and the mayhem and the madness down here. Vince, this has got to be a huge thrill.
Well, we love it here, you know, and we couldn't be any happier, that's for sure.
How much of a surprise in your mind?
Well, we always felt we were real competitive. We're going to be here, but you know, when it happens, it's a different feeling.
What a way to go to Indianapolis in the month of May.
We did that last time with Roberto. We'll do it again.
Get to victory lane. Huh?
Thanks.
All right, Vince Granatelli and the crew.
You know what? What's ironic about that is Monan was with Vince Granatelli before. And they left and didn't leave on good terms together, Paul. Now he's back.
That's Danny Sullivan there. Boy, he had a great run going. Too bad. Let's go right at the end. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, just like Indianapolis, Paul Page, Ari Luyendyk looks as if he's just been out for a Sunday afternoon drive, having a little bit of a problem getting the neck restraint off, but a terrific victory in front of his newly adopted hometown. As Paul Page, you know, he moved here just a little while ago, less than a year ago, and now Luyendyk is getting the congratulations of his entire team. We'll see if we can get the helmet off. As you can hear the crew congratulate him. And you know, one thing you got to remember, the crew generally are so unsung. Their chance in victory lane to celebrate. That's one thing that they all so very much look forward to. Luyendyk working the chin strap right now. Probably the slowest thing he's done all day, Paul, is take the helmet off. Now he can hear us. Ari, congratulations. First the Indy 500, you come back here in front of your hometown and you back it all up with a win here in the Valvoline 200.
Well, I have to pay a lot of respect here to my crew. They did a fantastic job on the first call there to keep me out. And I can only tell you that I'm really glad to get that chip off my shoulder of people asking me why I haven't won after Indy. So we did it today, and we're going to go to Indy and try to make it 2 in a row.
That really has bothered you all year, hasn't it? You haven't said much about it, but you got tired of people saying, well, he can't back up the Indy win with another victory on an oval.
Well, I guess last year was last year, and this is a whole new year, and we started off a lot better. And I can't thank my crew enough, Vince Granatelli, Bob Tizak, everybody. And I'm just going to go to Indianapolis with more confidence than I would have been.
Well, congratulations, Ari. Let's check in now further down pit road with Gary Gerald. Gary?
I've lost all contact.
Gary Gerald is right there by Emerson Fittipaldi. Little problem with communications with Gary. Gary, can you hear us? Now, Emerson Fittipaldi climbs out of the car in second place. He finished 2.6 seconds behind the first place Ari Leyendyk, scoring his second win. Ray Hall third, Michael Andretti fourth, and of course, all this unofficial, but Rick Mears in fifth place. Average speed of the race, 130.17 miles an hour. As you look down through the remainder of the top 10, Hellinger Jr. hung in there. A very happy Prince Vanatelli. Oh, what a great day for that team. And, you know, it now sets the stage. In 2 weeks, ABC's auto racing coverage will continue with time trials for the Great Indianapolis 500, the 75th running. The world's top kart drivers racing against time for the coveted pole position. It all begins Saturday, May 11th, right here on ABC Sports. We'll be there with you. Boy, the stage is definitely set. So Ari Leyendyk picks up the win in the Valvoline 200 here in Phoenix. 3 races are complete. 3 different winners. John Andretti at Australia, and then Little Al at Long Beach 2 weeks ago, and now Ari Leyendyk. We talked back at Long Beach about what a competitive season this is, and it's proving to be just exactly that. Another great day in the sun at Phoenix, Arizona, with Ari Leyendyk in front of the hometown crowd picking up the win. I'm Paul Page for Sam Posey, Bobby Unser, Jack Arute, and Gary Gerald. So long. We'll see you at Indianapolis.